The great chamber of the Galactic Union stood silent. 10,000 seats rose in circles toward a ceiling painted with stars. Representatives from 300 species filled those seats. Some had scales. Some had feathers. Some had no bodies at all, only projections of light that flickered when they spoke. At the center of the chamber, Ambassador Krath of the Vektari Empire stood tall. His gray skin shone under the lights. His forearms moved as he spoke, each gesture sharp and full of purpose. The Vektari had conquered 60 worlds in 3,000 years. They feared nothing in the known galaxy. This council clings to old fears, Krath said. His voice echoed through the chamber. Article 7, Section 12. I have read it many times. No species shall attempt to provoke, train, or militarily engage humanity in sustained conflict. This law is 10,000 years old. 10,000 years. And for what? For a species of farmers? Laughter rippled through the younger delegations. The Morkai clicked their claws in amusement. The Thesan delegates hissed their approval. These were young species, hungry and bold, risen to power in the last few millennia. They knew humans only as traders and colonists, quiet people who grew food and built homes on distant worlds. But not everyone laughed. In the highest seats, where the eldest species sat, there was only silence. The Ashuri delegation did not move. Their ancient bodies, thin as paper and white as bone, remained still. Their black eyes watched Krath with something that looked like sorrow. Beside them, the mind weavers pulsed with dim colors, the shades of worry and old memory. Krath noticed their silence. He turned to face them directly. The elder races hide in their high seats, he said. They wrote this law, yet they refuse to explain it. They shake with fear at the mention of humanity, yet humans have not fought a war in 2,000 years. Their military is ceremonial. Their weapons are outdated. They spend their time planting gardens and writing poetry. Ambassador Krath. The voice came from above. Ashuri elder Ven rose slowly from his seat. He was old beyond measure. His species had watched stars die. He had been alive when the first Galactic Union Charter was signed. You speak of what you see, Ven said. His voice was soft, like wind through dry leaves. You see human farmers, human traders, human children playing in fields of grain. This is true. This is what they are now. Then why the law? Krath demanded. Ven's black eyes seemed to look through Krath, through the walls, through time itself. Because we remember what they were before. The chamber grew quiet. Even the young species stopped their laughter. Something in the elder's voice carried weight. It carried warning. Speak plainly, Krath said. What were they? Ven was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his words were measured and careful. They were forged in fire, Ambassador. Not the fire of stars. The fire of their own making. They burned themselves for 200,000 years. Generation after generation. Without pause. Without mercy. They perfected the art of ending life before they learned to travel between stars. Krath waved a dismissive hand. Every species has a violent past. The Vektari conquered our world through blood. It made us strong. You do not understand. Ven's voice grew harder. Your wars lasted decades. Centuries at most. Human wars never stopped. They fought with stones, then with metal, then with fire that could erase cities, then with poisons that killed slowly, horribly. They invented new ways to die faster than they invented ways to live. They did not fight for territory or resources alone. They fought over ideas, over words, over the color of their skin, over the names they called their gods. The chamber was completely silent now. They killed each other by the billions, Ven continued. Billions. Do you know what that number means? It means that humanity practiced war more than any species in galactic history. It means they have tried every tactic, every strategy, every horror that a mind can create. And they did it to themselves. Krath stood firm, but some of the confidence had left his posture. That was long ago, he said. They are peaceful now. Yes, Ven agreed. They are peaceful now. But do you know why? He leaned forward, and his ancient face seemed suddenly terrible. They are peaceful because they chose to be. They looked at what they had become, and they were horrified. They buried their weapons. They burned their war plans. They taught their children to grow things instead of destroy things. They chose peace not because they were weak, Ambassador. They chose peace because they were too strong. Ven sat back in his seat. The law exists to protect us from what happens if they remember. Krath stood in silence for several seconds. Then he laughed. It was a forced sound, meant to break the tension. Stories, he said. Old stories to frighten children. The Ashori have grown timid with age. The humans I have seen could not threaten a Vectari patrol ship. Because you see what they show you, another elder said. This was Mindweaver Prime, speaking through colors and thought. You see the mask they wear. You do not see the face beneath. Enough. Krath turned back to the full council. I call for a vote. Remove Article 7, Section 12. Let humanity prove themselves like any other species. If they are truly harmless, the law serves no purpose. If they are dangerous, then we should know it. The vote was called. The elder races voted to keep the law, but there were only 12 of them. The young species, 300 strong, voted to remove it. The motion failed to pass by a narrow margin. Ancient treaties gave the elder races additional weight in matters of galactic security. But Krath smiled anyway. The vote does not matter, he announced. The Vectari Empire is not bound by your fears. We will test the humans ourselves. We will show the galaxy that this ancient law protects nothing but the pride of species too old to remember their own courage. Gasps filled the chamber. Ven rose again, his thin body trembling. You cannot, he said. You must not. You do not understand what you will wake. I understand perfectly, Krath replied. I will wake a sleeping farmer and show him to be exactly what he appears. Nothing more. He turned and walked toward the exit. His delegation followed. At the doors, he paused and looked back at the elder races. When I return, he said, I will bring human prisoners to stand before this council, and you will remove your foolish law, or we will remove you. The doors closed behind him. In the silence that followed, Ven sank back into his seat. His ancient hands trembled. A young aide approached him. Elder, the aide said softly, surely the ambassador exaggerates. Humans cannot be as dangerous as you say. We have watched them for millennia. They are kind. They are gentle. They help other species without asking for payment. Ven looked at the aide with eyes that had seen empires rise and fall. Yes, he said. They are kind. They are gentle. And that, young one, is what terrifies me most. Do you know how much strength it takes to be gentle when you were born in fire? Do you know what discipline it requires to help others when your instincts scream to conquer them? He turned away and pressed a command into his chair. Show me Archive 7, he said. A holographic display appeared before him. It was small, meant only for his eyes. A file appeared, locked with seals that had not been broken in 10,000 years. The label read, The Burning Age, Human Conflict Record, Maximum Classification. Do not open. Without full council authorization, Ven stared at it for a long moment. The ambassador wants to know what humans were, he whispered. I fear he will learn. I fear the lesson will cost more than the Vectari can pay. Far across the galaxy, on a green and blue world called Earth, farmers tended their fields. Children played in gardens. Artists painted sunsets and poets wrote about love. And deep beneath the mountains, in vaults that had not been opened in 2,000 years, something waited. Old machines, old plans, old memories of fire and blood and victory. Humanity had chosen peace, but they had never forgotten war. They had only been waiting for a reason to remember, and the Vectari had just given them one. The planet was called New Eden. It was a farming world on the edge of human space. Green fields stretched across its continents. Rivers ran clean and clear. Small towns dotted the landscape, connected by simple roads. The people there grew food for 100 other colonies. They lived quiet lives. They had never seen a warship. Commander Thros stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Vectari Vengeance. 200 warships spread behind him in perfect formation. Each one carried enough firepower to level a city. Each one was crewed by soldiers who had conquered a dozen worlds. Below them, New Eden turned slowly. It looked peaceful, defenseless. Scans complete, his tactical officer reported. No military installations detected. No orbital defenses. A single communications satellite. Population approximately 2 million. Thros allowed himself a smile. His gray skin pulled tight across his sharp features. Ambassador Krath spoke the truth, he said. These humans are lambs waiting for slaughter. Begin the invasion. The fleet descended like a storm. Dropships fell through the atmosphere in waves. Vectari soldiers poured onto the surface, their weapons ready, their armor gleaming. They expected screaming. They expected chaos. They expected humans running in terror. What they found was something else. The first town they reached was called Riverside. It was small, perhaps 3,000 people. Simple houses lined simple streets. A school stood near the center. A market square held the morning's produce. When the Vectari soldiers marched in, the humans did not run. They did not scream. They stood in their doorways and watched. Their faces showed no fear, only a strange cold calm. Sergeant Voss of the 3rd Infantry Battalion approached a human male standing outside a farmhouse. The human was old, his hair white, his hands rough from years of work. He held no weapons. You are now subjects of the Vectari Empire, Voss announced. Surrender, and you will be treated fairly. Resist, and you will die. The old farmer looked at him. There was something in his eyes that Voss did not understand. It was not fear. It was not anger. It was something deeper. Something that had been sleeping for a very long time. You should leave, the old man said. His voice was quiet. You should leave while you still can. Voss laughed and pushed past him into the house. By nightfall, the Vectari held 6 towns. They had captured the communications center. They had rounded up thousands of prisoners. Everything was going according to plan. And then it stopped. The first attack came at midnight. A supply convoy was moving between 2 occupied towns. 12 vehicles. 40 soldiers. They vanished. When search teams found them, there was nothing left but burned metal and silence. Thros received the report with confusion. How? He demanded. There are no human military forces on this planet. Commander, his intelligence officer said slowly, the attack appears to have been conducted by farmers. Farmers? Yes, sir. We recovered fragments of improvised weapons, modified farming equipment, homemade explosives. The humans, they built weapons from their tools. Thros felt the first stirring of unease. How long did they have to prepare these weapons? The officer checked his data. His face went pale. Based on the complexity of the devices, Approximately 6 hours, sir. 6 hours. In 6 hours, simple farmers had built weapons capable of destroying a military convoy. Thras thought of the old man outside the farmhouse. The calm in his eyes. The warning in his voice. The second night was worse. Vektari patrols began disappearing. Not killed, just gone. Soldiers would walk into shadows and never come out. In one town, an entire platoon vanished from a building they were using as a headquarters. The doors were still locked. The windows were still sealed. But every soldier inside was simply gone. Fear began to spread through the Vektari ranks. On the third day, Thras ordered a show of force. He gathered prisoners in the main square of Riverside, 100 humans, including children. He announced that for every Vektari soldier killed, 10 humans would die. He expected them to break, to beg, to betray whoever was organizing the resistance. The humans stood in silence. Some held hands. Some smiled. Not one of them spoke. Then an old woman at the front of the group stepped forward. She was small, her body bent with age. She looked up at Thras with eyes that burned with something ancient. "You poor fools," she said. "You have no idea what you've done, what we've done." Thras laughed. "We have conquered your world in 3 days." "No," she said. "You have woken us up." That night, the humans attacked in force. They came from everywhere. From the fields. From the forests. From the rivers. They were farmers and teachers and builders and doctors. They were old and young. They carried weapons made from pipes and farming tools and kitchen knives. And they fought with a skill that defied explanation. Sergeant Voss found himself facing a human woman in a burning street. She was perhaps 40 years old. She wore simple clothes stained with dirt. In her hands, she held a metal rod sharpened to a point. Voss had 20 years of military training. He had fought on a dozen worlds. He raised his plasma rifle and fired. The woman moved. Not running, not hiding. She moved like water, flowing around the shot, closing the distance between them. Her improvised spear found the gap in his armor before he could fire again. As he fell, Voss looked into her eyes. They were calm, focused, professional. "How?" he gasped. "You're a farmer." The woman knelt beside him. Her voice was sad. "I am a farmer," she said. "But my grandfather was a soldier. And his grandfather before him. And his grandfather before him. We remember, soldier. We always remember." Commander Thras watched the chaos from his command center. His forces were being pushed back. Not by an army, by shopkeepers and school teachers. They adapted to every tactic he used. They anticipated his movements. They set traps that his experienced soldiers walked into like blind children. His tactical officer approached him, fear written across his features. "Commander, I have analyzed their combat patterns. They are using techniques from human history. Techniques that have not been used in 2,000 years. But they are using them perfectly. As if the knowledge was always there, waiting." Thras felt cold spread through his body. "What are they?" he whispered. "They are humans, sir." The officer's voice trembled. "And I believe we have made a terrible mistake." By the morning of the 4th day, the Vektari held only their landing zones. Half their ground forces were dead or missing. The farmers of New Eden had organized into units, developed communication systems, established supply lines. They had done in 4 days what should have taken months. Thras ordered a retreat to orbit. He would bombard the planet from space. He would burn every field, every town, every living thing. That would show these humans the cost of resistance. But as his surviving soldiers reached the dropships, one final message reached him. It came from the old farmer he had seen on the first day. The man stood in the ruins of his farmhouse, speaking directly into a captured Vektari communicator. "I told you to leave," the old man said. His voice was still calm, still quiet. "You should have listened. You will die for this," Thros snarled. "Your entire planet will burn." The old man smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had seen too much, who knew too much, who remembered things he wished he could forget. "Maybe," he said, "but you woke something today. Not just on this world. You woke it everywhere humans live. You reminded us what we are, what we were, what we can become again." He leaned closer to the communicator. "I have a message for your masters, Commander. Run. Run as fast as you can. Because a message has already reached Earth, and they are coming. Not the farmers. Not the poets. The others. The ones we keep hidden. The ones we pray we never have to use." The signal cut off. Thros stared at the blank screen. His hands were shaking. Across the galaxy, on 100 human worlds, the same scene played out. People looked up from their gardens and their books and their peaceful lives. They felt something stir in their blood. Old memories. Old instincts. And on Earth, in the chambers of the United Human Government, a message arrived from New Eden. It was short. It was simple. "They have attacked us. We have held them. But they will return with more. We request authorization for full response." The president of the Human Alliance read the message. She was a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes. She had spent her career building schools and hospitals. She had never ordered a military action in her life. She looked at her advisors, old men and women who remembered things that their grandchildren had never been taught. Who knew what waited in the vaults beneath the mountains? "It seems," she said quietly, "that the galaxy has finally forgotten why they should fear us." She pressed a button on her desk. "Open the archives. Wake the sleeping wolves." In vaults across Earth, lights flickered on for the first time in 2,000 years. The wolves were waking, and they were hungry. The council chamber of the United Human Government sat deep beneath the mountains of what was once called Switzerland. It had not been used for its true purpose in 2,000 years. Now, for the first time in generations, it was full. President Maya Chun stood at the central podium. She was 60 years old. Her face showed the weight of sleepless nights. Around her sat the leaders of every human world. Governors, administrators, elected officials. Most of them had never seen this chamber before. Most of them had not known it existed. "Thank you all for coming," Chun said. Her voice was steady, but her hands gripped the podium tightly. "You have all received reports from New Eden. The Vektari Empire has attacked our people. They have killed civilians. They have burned our towns. They believe we will not respond." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. "But that is not why I called this meeting," Chun continued. "I called you here to ask a question. A question that our ancestors hoped would never need to be asked again." She paused. The chamber fell silent. "Do we remember?" The words hung in the air. Most of the younger officials looked confused. But the older ones, the ones whose grandparents had whispered stories in the dark, they understood. Their faces went pale. "For 2,000 years, Chun said, we have taught our children to grow food, to build homes, to create art and music and poetry. We have shown the galaxy a face of peace. We have traded with them, helped them, healed them, and we have never, not once, shown them what lies beneath." She pressed a button. The lights dimmed. A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber, a timeline stretching back into human history. "This is what we taught ourselves to forget," she said. "This is the truth we buried. This is the burning age." The display began to move. Images appeared, videos, records. The history of human warfare played across the chamber in terrible detail. Stone axes cutting through bone. Bronze swords clashing in ancient cities. Iron blades painting battlefields red. The images accelerated through time. Cannons roared. Rifles cracked. Trenches filled with mud and blood and dying men. Then came the modern age. Tanks rolled across continents. Aircraft darkened the skies. Cities vanished in mushroom clouds of fire. Chemical weapons turned soldiers into screaming, melting shadows. Biological agents emptied entire regions of life. The younger officials watched in horror. Some turned away. Some wept. They had grown up in peace. They had never imagined such things were possible. But the display continued. 200,000 years, Chun said. That is how long humanity has existed. And for almost all of that time, we were at war. Not with aliens. Not with monsters. With ourselves. Numbers appeared on the display. Death tolls from every conflict in human history. They scrolled past faster than the eye could follow. Millions. Hundreds of millions. Billions. We killed more of our own kind than any species in galactic history, Chun said. We invented new ways to die faster than we invented ways to live. We fought over land, over resources, over ideas, over the color of our skin, over words in books, over lines drawn on maps. The display showed a final image, Earth as seen from space, beautiful, blue, green, peaceful. And then we stopped. The chamber was silent. Why? Someone asked. It was Governor James of Mars Colony. He was young, only 40, born long after the last war. Why did we stop? Chun's voice grew soft. Because we finally looked at ourselves and saw what we had become. We saw the weapons we had built, weapons that could crack planets, weapons that could burn the sky, weapons that could erase species from existence. And we were horrified. She walked slowly around the podium. Our ancestors made a choice. They chose to put down their swords. Not because they were weak. Not because they had lost. They chose peace because they realized that if they did not, there would be nothing left to fight for. They sealed away their weapons. They burned their war plans. They taught their children to farm and to build and to heal. They showed their children only love, only peace, only hope. And slowly, over generations, humanity transformed itself. She stopped and turned back to face the council. But they did not destroy everything. They could not bring themselves to do it. Because deep down, they knew that someday, the universe might give us a reason to remember. So they built vaults. They stored the weapons. They wrote down the knowledge. And they made a law. These things would only be used if humanity faced extinction. The Vivectari have killed our people, someone said. But they have not threatened our extinction. No, Chun agreed. They have not. But they have done something perhaps worse. They have reminded us of what we are. She pulled up a new display. This one showed reports from New Eden, videos of farmers fighting Victari soldiers, teachers organizing ambush, children running supplies through enemy lines. Look at how quickly our people adapted, Chen said. 6 hours. It took 6 hours for peaceful farmers to build weapons and organize resistance. Not because they learned it fresh, because it was always there, sleeping in their blood. The knowledge of 1,000 wars. The instincts of 1,000,000 battlefields. She turned off the display. The galaxy has a law, Article 7, Section 12. It forbids any species from provoking humanity. The elder races wrote that law 10,000 years ago, when our ancestors first met them. Do you know why they wrote it? Silence. Because our ancestors told them the truth. They showed the elders what humanity had been, what humanity could become again. And the elders were so frightened that they wrote it into their founding charter. They did not do it to control us. They did it to protect the galaxy from us. And now, Chen said, the Vectari have broken that law. They have killed our people. They believe we are harmless. They believe our military is ceremonial. They are about to learn how wrong they are. She walked to a control panel at the side of the chamber. Her hand hovered over a switch that had not been touched in 2,000 years. I am going to authorize Doctrine Omega. This will open the vaults. It will wake the fleets we have kept hidden. It will release weapons that the galaxy has never seen and cannot comprehend. We will respond to the Vectari, not with our ceremonial forces, but with the true power of humanity. She looked around the chamber. But I will not do this alone. You represent every human world. You must vote. You must choose. Do we show the galaxy what we truly are? Do we let the wolves wake? The vote was unanimous. Deep beneath Earth's surface, lights began to flicker on. In caverns carved from living rock, machines stirred that had slept for millennia. Ships powered up, sleek, beautiful, terrible ships designed with 200,000 years of combat evolution. Weapons came online that could shatter moons and crack planets and turn stars into bombs. On the surface, the humans continued their peaceful lives. Children still played. Farmers still tended their fields. But beneath the mask of civilization, something was waking. In her command center, President Chen authorized one final action. A message to be broadcast across all galactic frequencies. To the Vectari, to the elder races, to every species that had forgotten why they should fear humanity. This is President Maya Chen of the United Human Alliance. For 2,000 years, we have chosen peace. We have built instead of destroyed. We have healed instead of harmed. We have shown you only kindness. You have repaid that kindness with blood. We gave ourselves rules to protect the galaxy from us. You have broken those rules. You have attacked our people. You have burned our homes. You have awakened something that should have stayed sleeping. The wolves are rising. Pray that we remember mercy, because we remember everything else. Across the galaxy, species that had never felt fear felt it now. The elder races closed their borders and began to pray. The young species laughed nervously and told themselves it was a bluff. And the Vectari Emperor, sitting on his throne of conquest, received the message and smiled. Let them come, he said. We will show them the might of our empire. He did not understand. He would soon. The archives were open. The ships were rising. The wolves were awake. And they were very, very angry. Commander Thros had returned to Vectari space as a hero. The Emperor himself had praised him. Yes, the ground forces had faced unexpected resistance on New Eden. Yes, they had been forced to retreat. But they had proven something important. Humans could be hurt. Humans could be killed. Humans could bleed. Now the full might of the Vectari Empire was gathering. 3,000 warships. 10 million soldiers. The largest fleet assembled in Vectari history, ready to crush humanity once and for all. Thros stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the Wrath of Empire. It was 5 times the size of his previous vessel. It carried weapons that could level continents. Around him, the fleet spread across the void like a sea of steel and fire. The humans have sent a message, his communications officer reported. They claim their wolves are coming. They claim we should pray for mercy. Laughter filled the bridge. Let them pray, Thros said. When we are done, there will be no humans left to threaten anyone. The fleet moved toward human space. 3 days at maximum speed. 3 days until the end of humanity's peaceful existence. 3 days until the galaxy would learn that the Vectari Empire feared nothing. On the first day, nothing happened. The fleet moved through empty space. Scouts found no resistance. No patrol ships. No defensive stations. The humans appeared to be hiding. Cowards, the Emperor declared in a broadcast to his people. They know what is coming. They know they cannot stop us. On the second day, the first ship vanished. It was a scout vessel, small and fast, running ahead of the main fleet. One moment it was there. The next, its signals simply stopped. No distress call. No explosion. Just silence. Thros felt a flicker of unease. Find out what happened. 3 more scouts were sent to investigate. All 3 vanished. Commander, the sensor officer said slowly, I am detecting something. Ships. Many ships. But they are not registering on our targeting systems. Our computers do not recognize them. Show me. The main display flickered. For a moment, Thros saw nothing but stars. Then, gradually, shapes began to appear. Ships, but like no ships he had ever seen. They were sleek and dark, built with curves instead of angles. They seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They moved with a grace that made Vektari vessels look like clumsy rocks. And there were thousands of them. Where did they come from? Thros breathed. Unknown, sir. They do not match any human ship in our database. They do not match any ship in Galactic record. Of course they did not. These ships had been hidden for 2,000 years. They had been built with knowledge from the Burning Age, 200,000 years of combat evolution, refined into perfect instruments of war. All ships battle formation. Thros commanded. Target the lead vessel. 300 Vektari warships turned their weapons on a single human ship. They fired together, a storm of plasma and missiles and energy beams that could have cracked the moon. The human ship moved. It did not dodge. It did not run. It simply moved sideways, sliding through the attack as if the beams were gentle rain. Every shot missed. Every missile lost its target. The ship sailed through the fire untouched. That is not possible, the tactical officer whispered. Then the human ship fired back. One shot. A single beam of light, thin as a thread, fast as thought. It touched the nearest Vektari warship, a cruiser named Conqueror with a crew of 3,000. The Conqueror came apart. Not exploded. Not burned. It came apart at the molecular level, dissolving into dust and gas and scattered atoms. One moment it was a warship. The next, it was nothing. Silence filled the Vektari fleet. 3,000 lives, gone in less than a second. And the human ship had not even slowed down. All ships, Thros ordered, his voice shaking. Attack! Everything we have. The Battle of First Contact, as it would later be called, lasted 6 hours. It was not a battle. It was a lesson. Human ships danced through the Vektari formation. They moved in patterns that Vektari computers could not predict. They changed tactics every few minutes, adapting to every response, countering every strategy. One moment they fought like ghosts, appearing and vanishing, striking from shadows. The next, they charged directly into the heart of the Vektari fleet, their shields absorbing fire that should have destroyed them. And they never stopped learning. Thros watched in horror as human ships analyzed Vektari tactics in real time. When the Vektari tried flanking maneuvers, the humans anticipated them. When they tried surprise attacks, the humans were already waiting. When they concentrated their fire, the humans scattered. When they scattered, the humans concentrated. They are not just fighting us, his tactical officer said, his voice hollow with despair. They are studying us, testing us. They are not using their full strength. It was true. The human fleet was holding back, playing with them, showing them just enough power to terrify, but not enough to end the battle quickly. They wanted the Vektari to understand. By the 4th hour, half the Vectari fleet was gone. By the 5th hour, 3/4. By the 6th hour, only the Wrath of Empire and a handful of escorts remained. Then the human flagship arrived. It was enormous, larger than any station Thros had ever seen. It looked less like a ship and more like a moving city, a mountain of metal and power that darkened the stars. It emerged from nowhere, simply appearing in front of the Vectari remnant as if it had always been there. The hull was covered in writing, ancient human scripts, languages that had not been spoken in millennia, and one phrase repeated over and over in every tongue: remember what we were. A communication came through. A human face appeared on the display. A woman, old and gray, wearing a simple uniform with no decorations. Her eyes were tired, sad. "I am Admiral Sarah Chung," she said, "grandmother of President Maya Chun. I have been asleep for a very long time, waiting for a day I hoped would never come. Surrender." Thros spat, though he knew the word was meaningless now. "You cannot. We can do anything," Chun interrupted. Her voice was soft, but it carried the weight of mountains. "We have been killing each other for longer than your species has existed. We have invented more ways to end life than you can imagine. We have burned our own cities, poisoned our own water, split our own atoms to prove we could. Do not tell us what we cannot do." She leaned forward. "Your entire fleet, Commander. 3,000 ships. 10 million soldiers. The pride of your empire. And we have destroyed them with less than 1/4 of our awakened forces. You have not faced our army. You have faced our scouts." Thros felt his legs weaken. "What do you want?" "I want you to deliver a message," Chun said. "Tell your emperor. Tell your people. Tell the galaxy. The wolves are awake. We did not want this. We chose peace. We built a better world. And you forced us to remember what we were." The display shifted. It showed a map of the galaxy. Human space. Vectari space. The homeworlds of every species. "We could end you," Chun said. "All of you. Every ship. Every world. Every colony. We could burn your empire to ash and salt the ground so nothing grows again. Our weapons can crack planets. Our ships can outrun light. Our soldiers remember 10,000 years of war in their blood and bones." She paused. "But we will not. Not today. Today, you will take your surviving ships and return home. You will tell your emperor that humanity is not to be touched. Ever, for any reason. And you will pray that this lesson is enough." The display showed human ships pulling back, opening a corridor. "A path home. Go," Chun said. "And remember, the next time you attack us, there will be no warning. There will be no mercy. There will only be fire." The transmission ended. Thros stood on his shattered bridge, surrounded by the dead and dying. Around him, the last remnants of the greatest fleet in Vectari history limped toward the corridor the humans had opened. They were being allowed to escape. They were being shown mercy. And that, more than anything else, terrified Commander Thros, because he finally understood. The humans had not fought back out of anger. They had not destroyed the Vectari fleet out of hatred. They had done it with sorrow, with reluctance, with the weary patience of a species that had seen too much death and wanted no more. They were not conquerors. They were something far more dangerous. They were predators who had chosen to become protectors. Wolves who had learned to guard the sheep. And the Vectari, in their arrogance, had reminded them of teeth they had spent centuries trying to forget. As the wrath of Empire crawled toward home, Thros composed his message to the Emperor. It was simple. It was the most important message in Vectari history. Do not wake the wolves again. They let us live. They may not do so twice. Behind him, the human fleet remained still, watching, waiting. The wolves were awake, but they had not yet decided to hunt. The human fleet arrived at the Vectari homeworld in 3 days. What had taken the Vectari Empire weeks to prepare had taken humanity a long weekend. 1,000 ships surrounded the planet in a ring of silent steel. No weapons fired. No demands were broadcast. They simply waited. Emperor Korath stood in his palace, watching the sky fill with ships. His advisors had fled. His generals had surrendered. His mighty empire, 3,000 years of conquest and glory, had crumbled in less than a week. What do they want? He whispered to the empty room. Why do they not attack? A voice answered from behind him. Because they are deciding if you deserve to live. Korath spun around. A human stood in his throne room. Just one human, a woman in a simple uniform. She was old, her hair silver, her face lined with years. But her eyes were sharp, alert, dangerous. How did you get in here? Korath demanded. His guards were gone. His weapons were useless. He had never felt so powerless. I walked, the woman said. She did not seem impressed by his palace, his throne, his golden robes. My name is Admiral Sarachan. We spoke before. You were on your flagship. I was. Now I am here. Your security systems are 2,000 years out of date, Emperor. Everything about your empire is. She walked slowly around the room, looking at the paintings and sculptures. You thought you were powerful. You conquered 60 worlds. You believed nothing could stop you. She stopped in front of a window. The human ships hung in the sky like patient gods. Let me tell you what power really means. Korath said nothing. Power means having the strength to destroy everything and choosing not to. Power means standing at the edge of darkness and pulling back. Power means looking at your enemies, beaten and broken, and deciding that mercy serves better than murder. She turned to face him. My species spent 200,000 years learning to kill. We were very good at it. The best in the galaxy, perhaps the best in the universe. We killed with stones and sticks. We killed with metal and fire. We killed with atoms and viruses and weapons that turned the very air into poison. We killed so much that we nearly erased ourselves from existence. Her voice grew softer. And then we stopped. We looked at what we had become, and we were horrified. All that genius, all that creativity, all that passion, spent on death. We decided there had to be something better. So we put down our weapons. We buried our ships. We taught our children to grow flowers instead of armies. For 2,000 years, we were peaceful. We thought we had changed. We thought the wolves were finally asleep. She met Korath's eyes. You woke them up. You killed our farmers. You burned our schools. You reminded us that the universe is not as kind as we pretended. What will you do to us? Korath's voice cracked. Chun smiled. It was not a cruel smile. It was tired, sad, ancient, nothing. Korath blinked. Nothing? We could destroy you. Every ship, every colony, every city. We could turn your homeworld into ash and make sure no Vectari ever threatens anyone again. Our weapons are ready. Our soldiers are willing. We remember how to kill, Emperor. We remember it very well. She walked toward the door. But that is not who we chose to be. We did not cross the stars to become what we escaped. We did not bury our swords to dig them up for you. She stopped at the threshold. We demand 3 things. First, return our prisoners. Every human taken from New Eden, alive and unharmed. Second, a public apology. Broadcast to every world in the galaxy. Admit what you did. Admit that you were wrong. Third, support the law. Article 7, Section 12. Vote to make it stronger, Tell the galaxy why it exists, and if I refuse, Chun did not turn around. Then we will return tomorrow, and we will not be merciful twice. She walked out. The doors closed behind her, and Emperor Korath, conqueror of 60 worlds, sank to his knees and wept. 3 days later, the Galactic Council assembled. The chamber was fuller than it had ever been. Every species had sent representatives. Every world wanted to witness what would happen next. Emperor Korath stood at the central podium. His golden robes were gone, replaced by simple gray cloth. His proud posture had crumbled into something smaller, broken. "I am here to apologize," he said. His voice carried across the silent chamber. The Victari Empire attacked humanity without cause. We believed them weak. We believed them harmless. We believed the ancient laws were foolish fears. He paused. We were wrong. The chamber remained silent. I have seen their ships. I have felt their power. I have looked into the eyes of their admirals and seen something I cannot describe. They could have destroyed us. They had every right to destroy us. We killed their people. We burned their homes. We gave them every reason to hate us. His voice cracked. They let us live. They showed us mercy. And they asked for nothing but an apology and a promise that we would never forget what we learned. He looked up at the elder races, sitting in their high seats. I understand now why you wrote Article 7. I understand why you feared them. Not because they are violent. Not because they are cruel. Because they are neither of those things, even though they could be. They chose peace. They chose to build instead of destroy. And they are strong enough to make that choice stick. Elder Ven rose slowly from his seat. His ancient face showed something like satisfaction, something like relief. 10,000 years ago, Ven said, the first humans we met came to us with a request. They did not ask for territory. They did not ask for technology. They asked us to help them stay peaceful. The chamber stirred. They told us their history. The burning age, the billions of dead, the weapons that could end worlds. They told us what they had been and what they were trying to become. And they asked us, they begged us, to write a law that would prevent the galaxy from ever giving them a reason to remember. Ven's voice grew heavy with memory. They were afraid of themselves. That is what the younger species never understood. Humanity did not fear us. They feared what they might become if we pushed them too far. They chose peace not because they were weak, but because they knew exactly how strong they were, and they did not trust themselves with that strength. He turned to address the full council. Article 7 was not written to protect humanity. It was written to protect us from humanity, from the wolves sleeping inside every human soul. The wolves that wake when their children are threatened. The wolves that remember 10,000 wars in their blood and bones. He looked at Korath. You woke those wolves, Emperor, and you are alive only because the humans decided you were not worth killing. Remember that. Remember it every day for the rest of your life. The council voted. Article 7, Section 12 was strengthened. New provisions were added. No species would ever test humanity again. The law was carved into the foundation of galactic civilization, never to be forgotten. 1 week later, a young Victari soldier named Cress found himself standing at a transport hub. He was one of the survivors from New Eden. He had been captured, treated fairly, and released. Now he was waiting for a ship home. A human approached him. A young man, perhaps 20 years old. He wore simple clothes and carried a bag of seeds. A farmer heading out to help rebuild New Eden. You are Victari, the human said. Cress tensed. He expected anger, hatred, violence. Yes, he said carefully. The human sat down next to him. I was born on New Eden, he said. My grandmother was killed in your attack. My home was burned. My friends died in the resistance. Crash said nothing. There was nothing to say. I should hate you, the human continued. My whole life, everything I was taught says I should hate you. But I do not. Crash stared at him. Why? The young farmer was quiet for a moment. Because the hardest war we ever won was the one against ourselves. 200,000 years of killing, and we finally learned to stop. We learned that hate only creates more hate. Violence only creates more violence. The only way to break the cycle is to choose something better. He looked at Cress with eyes that held no anger. Your people woke the wolves. My people could have destroyed yours. But we chose mercy instead. Do you know why? Crash shook his head. Because destroying you would have been easy. Forgiving you is hard. And we have learned that the hard path is usually the right one. He stood and shouldered his bag. Go home, soldier. Tell your children what happened here. Tell them that humanity was forged in fire and blood and death. Tell them that we became the most dangerous species in the galaxy. And tell them that we chose, every single day, to be something better. He started to walk away, then paused. That is our true strength. Not our ships. Not our weapons. Not our memories of war. Our true strength is that we fight our own nature and win. Every day. Every generation. Forever. He disappeared into the crowd. Cress sat alone for a long time, thinking about wolves and sheep and the strange species that had somehow become both. Far across the galaxy. On a blue and green world called Earth, the vaults were sealed once more. The ships returned to their hidden docks. The weapons went back to sleep, but the wolves remained awake, watching, waiting, hoping they would never be needed again. In a garden outside Geneva, Admiral Sarah Chun planted flowers. Her hands, which had commanded ships and destroyed fleets, now worked with soil and seeds. A child approached her, her great-granddaughter, only 7 years old. Grandma, the child asked, why did we let the bad people go? Chun smiled and pulled the girl into her lap. Because, little one, being strong does not mean hurting everyone who hurts you. Being strong means choosing kindness when kindness is hard. It means building when it would be easier to destroy. It means forgiving when it would be easier to hate. She looked up at the sky, where stars were beginning to appear. We were forged by war. It made us powerful. But power means nothing without wisdom. And wisdom means knowing that the best victory is one where nobody has to die. The child thought about this. So, we are wolves who chose to be nice? Chun laughed. Yes, we are wolves who chose to be shepherds. And that, little one, is why the galaxy fears us. Not because of our teeth, but because we choose not to use them. The sun set over Earth. The galaxy turned in its endless dance. And humanity continued its longest war, the war against its own darkness. A war they won every day, simply by choosing to be kind. That was why the law existed. That was why the wolves stayed sleeping. That was the true strength of humanity, forged by fire and tempered by mercy. The end.